This is episode 108 of the Death to Tyrants podcast, recorded live at the Liberty Tree Tavern.
The crushing weight of the tyrant's passage had left nothing unmarked.
You get split in fucking half, but I call him the hologram wrath. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquids, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
All right, you guys, we are live out at the Liberty Tree Tavern. This is the Death to Tyrants podcast. I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson. Next to me here is, all of a sudden I had one co-host the other day. Now I've got two. They keep, I don't know if it's mating or whatever they're doing, but I've got to my right, Bobby Pearson from the Not For Everyone podcast. To his right, we've got who we will call Moral Bob from the Conversations About Freedom podcast. Bobby, real quick, go ahead and tell people about your podcast and about yourself so they know who you are.
Yeah, I host a podcast called Not For Everyone podcast. It has nothing to do with politics, although it is highly politically incorrect and offensive. Mostly two cynical man-children discussing cult and horror movies and yelling at each other for about an hour and a half each time we have time to get one out.
And Moral Bob, down to you.
Yeah, my
you
podcast,
troublemaker. This is Moral, the infamous Moral Bob who creates so much controversy.
Well, I like to kick shit over.
Moral Building 7 Bob.
Building 7 Bob, isn't that my shortened name?
Yes.
Yes. My name's Moral Bob. I have the Conversations About Freedom podcast, and I just want us all to be free. Isn't that the ultimate goal?
So, yes, it is. And speaking of that, we're here at the Liberty Tree Tavern, and it doesn't get much better than the combination of the Liberty Tree combined with the Death to Tyrants podcast. So I've got the owner here, Kevin Smith, and he created quite a bit of controversy over something you wouldn't think was too controversial, especially if you guys can remember way back about 2 weeks ago when the virus was all the rage in the news before everything that's going on right now. And then all of a sudden, mass gatherings were just fine. After some stuff went down, some really terrible stuff went down in Minnesota, no more masks unless they're covering your whole face except your eyes, apparently. And no more 6 feet apart, social distancing. That all went away. But before all that went away, and it was all the trend to push this upon all of us that you have to wear a mask, you can't have people in your establishment, you can't work. My man Kevin Smith here was willing to kind of give a middle finger to some of that. So Kevin, welcome to the show. Come on in here and talk about the Liberty Tree Tavern before we get to all of the stuff that you created, the controversy.
Well, I appreciate it, Buck. Thanks for having me on. I do appreciate it, and I've forego some of these higher, bigger shows because I just didn't want to give them my energy. I didn't feel like I needed to prop up the CNN's ratings since my Facebook had more traffic than their viewers. So we've had this bar. You've played here in your old rockabilly band. And it's been Liberty Tree Tavern, I guess, since late 2012. And I've had it for 10 and a half years now. And I've got landlords that are lawyers, and they're like, well, tell us about the choice of the name. Some could construe that as maybe a bit of a, offhand threat. And I was like, I just like the way it sounds, that's all, And of course, we know it's between letters between Madison and Jefferson. And they said the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots from time to time. And, back then that probably meant like every 20 years or something like that. But
we're long overdue then.
Oh, yeah. It's like the pole reversal. We're way overdue. But I like the name. I like the optics of it, And when I think about the snake, the rattlesnake, the don't tread on me, I'm like, that's like the Coca-Cola brand of its time. It couldn't be any better. It's the ultimate small warrior, that's not looking for trouble, but if you get ready to tread on him, it's buffaloes and things like that. He'll give you a warning. If you don't heed the warning, he'll strike and you'll die. He may die, but you'll die too. So I just like the optics of it and for what we were doing out here. And I also feel like it was for those with eyes to see, and the other ones wouldn't. And as far as this this COVID thing, we all pretty much know now it was overhyped no matter what. And it was like, I was saying, we got to watch Red Dawn. I got Jen also owns half the place. And I said, this is the way it was supposed to go. The formula was nuke exchange, occupation force, off to camps, and then pandemic, down to 90%. I'm like, they skipped all the middle parts. They went right to that. And we knew it smelled to high heaven. And here in Bastrop County, our judge was overzealous, and we're rural. This is a rural population. It is getting spillover now from Austin, but he jumped the shark on it, and he was the first one to go out there and put this county mandated mask restriction. You have to wear a mask. And then nut job Hinojosa in Harris County, she did it like 15 minutes later. And finally, Abbott did come and correct that. And we've removed the mandate to wear a mask. And this happened a few weeks ago. It happened, 10 days, 2 weeks before we were allowed to reopen. So I'm seeing signs, and I've had a run in at HEB. I'm over there in the bread section. There's no one in there. My cloth paper mask was starting to kind of fall apart and was itchy. So I had my chin, and the assistant manager that comes by is like, "You need to put that mask on." I was like, "Or what?" He goes, "Or I'll make you leave." "Oh, you'll make me leave?" And I'm like, "There's nobody over here." And he goes, "I know, but it's the rules or the law." I go, "It's not a law. It's a rule." He goes, "Well, I know, but And he goes, I go, "All this is BS, man. How much am I allowed to be gray in my?" I said, "This is all fucking bullshit, man." And he goes, "I know." And I said, "Oh, but still you're willing to enforce." I said, "All right, I'm done." I told Jen, I can't go to HEB anymore. I just can't do it. And this is before they put the plexiglass up and all that. And so I'll just have to go to our food distribution center, Walmart here. It's our domain out here. We gave all the abatements and tax incentives and zero out of their pocket to the Waltons. So and I always said, bottom line is just they're going to distribute food here during the FEMA situation. So I go over there. They close at 8:30. I'm walking up and I'm talking to this bearded guy over here on the phone, and they go, about 6, 8 of them are standing out there all bulled up, and they've got all this paper or plastic tape like you got to go through a cattle chute. And they're like, "We're closed." I said, "Well, what time do you close?" And they said, 8:30. I said, "Well, it's 8:20 now." "Well, we're not letting anybody in. We're closed." I said, "I'm just going to go right over there to the deli and grab one of those pizzas, and I'm, of course, going to self-check myself out." And like, "No, we're not letting anybody else in." I was like, "The best thing," and they said, "Because we got to get people out quick." Well, the best thing could be all 80 y'all go get on a register and check people out, but there's never more than one person on a register. So as I start to cause trouble, they all start bowing up, and they all come get in my face. And I said, "If you were going to be closed, just lock the door at your whatever arbitrary time you decide, apparently. Just lock the door. You don't have to put a goon squad out here." And then I proceed. They start calling me names and talking to me. And I was like, "Hey, you're going to be brown shirts." And then they took that to be sort of a racist thing. So I had to back up a little bit and explain the early origins of the essay a little bit, and the push. And that still didn't seem to be, landing. And I said, "Okay, so look, y'all just a little wannabe interview for a contact tracing job." They didn't know what that was either. But I guarantee you, these are the people they're going to hire to be contract tracers, because you see, they got a little bit of authority, not very much. They got a little bit of authority. And I'm like, call the test off after a week. This has gone horribly wrong. They're abusing the pretend prisoners. So I just go, well, now I can't go to Walmart either, And then by the time I started going back to HEB, they had the plexiglass up with a little hole that you could slide your money in. And the girl's got a mask on and those silly purple rubber gloves. She touches every one of my food items. She takes my money through the hole. She makes change and gives it back to me. And I go, "Okay, now you understand what you just did, don't you? You just contaminated everything." And again, blank look. So it's lightened up a little bit at HEB. So there's still signs go across the street. There's still a sign that says county mandate, you have to wear a mask. And it's not true. So I'm starting to see this second wave of mask wearers. They're not using the cheap, hospital mask now. They've got designer masks.
Yeah.
And it's Tennessee. Hers are nice. And it's Titans and, Longhorns. And I'm like, they don't have sports now. That's a bold move to stop the circus like they did. So no sports. Here's the new team, the masked team versus the unmasked team. And so
people love their teams.
Oh, my gosh. They'll fight for it. And I was across the street at the Dollar General, everyone. So there's a dozen people in line with me, and everyone's wearing a mask. And I said, this isn't happening anymore. We're not doing this. His mandate's been lifted. And they were, you worry about yourself, Holmes? And I was like, I am worried about myself. I want to be free. And you have to be free too. I can't be free by myself on an island. And like, are you crazy, dog? You're crazy. And I got up to the counter and the girl's wearing a mask, but her nose is exposed. I said, Jess, that's not doing it. And she's like, I know, but I can't breathe with it on. I go, that's a problem too. And I just saw this really entrenching of people. And I thought, are these people that are making like time and a half in their unemployment, they're making more than they've ever made? And if they want to help perpetuate the fraud by locking down and watching Netflix, and we frankly have watched it all. There's nothing else we can watch, so we wanted to get out. But so here it comes. We can open back up. Abbott finally allowed us, and the day we went down to a bar in a town outside of town, 3 Fridays ago, brought a bunch of people down there, packed, just wall to wall, and no mask, and the off-duty deputy sheriff from that county's buying the girls with us beers, and the fire marshal's in there. And I'm like, I don't think they ever stopped out here in the country. And it was just so much fun on that Friday. I thought, this is it. Monday, I'm calling the Capitol again. This time, the governor had a voicemail set up. Before, it was just ringing. And so I got to leave a voicemail in 2 minutes, and you got to edit it in case you said, I'm going to roll you into traffic, you son of a bitch. So I left a good message. And then I got to call back and talk to a lady, a nice lady at the state for 23 years. And she was pleasant. She said, well, listen to Governor Abbott today at 2 p.m. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I said, okay, I'll listen. And he goes in. It's like watching the very first of Dave Chappelle Sticks and Stones. I'm like, what? R. Kelly? Yeah, you did 15 years ago. You were right. And then he goes into this thing about how Anthony Bourdain hung himself. I'm like, come on, Chappelle, you know better than that. They tried to do the same thing to you. And then on a dime, boom, it pivots, and it becomes the greatest fucking stand-up I've ever seen. It's like Lenny Bruce with George Carlin put together, and it's so long overdue. So I'm listening to Abbott. He's doing the same shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? And about a paragraph in, he just says, having said that, enough is enough, and we're going to reopen. And he just wheeled that wheelchair around, and the 25% was going to be problematic, Bars don't operate at 25%, 50%, 100%. We go 0%, 1%, 5%, 10, 50, 60. And then on a Friday, on a Saturday, the last hour or two of the night, we do 250%. It's just balls to the wall. And I'm like, how do we operate on this plane of 25%? So I said, if I'm going to have 25%, I don't want any bunch of Karens. I don't want a bunch of social virtue signaling snowflakes in here telling me about it. So I'm just going to limit it to people and we're a smoking bar, it's a rare throwback. We're a smoking bar. And I thought, if you feel compromised, then maybe you shouldn't come in. So I just put up a sign that says, no mask allowed. And maybe you should go when you feel like it's safe, when you feel, not think, but you can come in. So I did that really just as kind of pushback, and I didn't, I'll
see you in court.
See you in court there. You got my number. Come get it.
He put 3 dead rats in front of my store.
Oh, look at this.
This is the best thing
Right now,
ever.
you're about to get your ass kicked. Get the fuck out. Get away.
Send me to jail.
Go call the cops and have him drag out.
This
Come on.
guy put 3
Let's go.
dead rats
This is good.
in my store.
It's good radio.
This is great radio.
You're going to jail.
Go ahead, bring it on.
Hey,
Don't touch it. Cops are coming for you, bro.
Oh, bring it on.
come on.
So anyway, some guy put 3 dead rats in front of his store one day. I
a friend
told
of
him,
yours?
after about 2 weeks, I told him who did it. But he already had in his mind that it was a big title company owner here. And he wouldn't change his mind. I said, I told you who did it. I saw the dead rats.
Well, that's the experience. That's it right there.
That's it.
What you say. Once people make up their mind, they will not reverse it because
That's a-
their pride gets in the way. They
that
don't
sucker's
want to
damaged.
admit that they're wrong. So they're just going to double down on bullshit.
Yeah, but when
like
they
that.
committed him, it wasn't voluntary. They committed him. So it
For those listening, real quick, a crazy man just walked in the bar, and there was almost a fight. It was awesome. I thought it was a
Did you
joke.
see Jen almost take him down?
Yeah.
I do like how Buck and I were like, come on in.
Yeah, I know. I motioned him to come in. I thought he was
They're
joking.
libertarians. They're libertarians. So,
Yeah.
They're like, no, don't let that
Also,
guy
for
in."
those listening, the Liberty Tree Tavern, the bartender gal here is tough as nails,
5'2".
apparently, and about beat the shit out of this
look,
old guy.
I'm the heavy. I'm always the heavy. But no, that guy's. Yay, Jen. Oh,
Can we get that guy in for an interview?
you all send him
After
over
this?
was
there.
that a Karen?
he predates it. The reason he's not allowed in here is Jen, and Jen loves everyone, but she's the one that dropped the hammer. Hey, I'll send you over to his trinket store if you can handle the smell of cat piss ammonia knocking you down when you walk through the door. So.
I almost said you don't have a mask. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, man. But anyway, back to it. So my idea was that I'm just going to push back. There's all this color of law on you have to, and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to say you have to not wear a mask to come in here. And at some point, we had some guys out at Sherwood Forest, the people that live in a fantasy world, not people that go to, they're people that live there, LARPers. And so they tried to dox me. They tried to, carnies mixed with Shakespeare. So they tried to dox me, and that started this whole little negative whirlwind that they thought they were winning. They're winning, we're winning, we're virtue signaling. And I just said, and at one point they said, well, if you'd apologize, I'm like, oh, no, not likely, no. And if I did, I would say not yet, because we're not there yet, because this thing's going to get its own momentum and its energy, and we've seen that. So you want to say something, so go ahead. He wants to say something.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, when you initially made the decision to do what you did,
can't even say it, can you?
Can't say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so atrocious. Was there any kind of, was it an immediately an oh hell no situation, or was there any kind of, like, from a business standpoint, risk versus reward kind of cost benefit analysis?
Wow, yes, I had my top men on it, of course. So top men. No, I just
I put my team to work.
It just had the aforementioned interactions I've had at the big box stores, and as I tell the people at the state, this isn't a quarantine. You didn't quarantine us. You didn't take the sick people and put them on a leper island. You did a martial law lockdown that we participated in voluntarily. And I think they understand that phase 2 is, and even Donald Trump has said, well, if it comes back, we'll deal with it, but we're not shutting things down. So I just had to try to break the zombie-like trance of people and make them think. And so that first weekend, right when I put the thing up, it got doxed immediately, and it started. And I poked the bear a few times and got it going. And I'm pretty media savvy. I used to be a media producer, and Jennifer's, being a lovely, decent person that she is, was concerned about it. And then maybe we should apologize. No. You don't know. You don't get it. So that Mark Twain quote about a lie will go halfway around the world before the internet. A lie will go halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. So those squealing ninnies kind of have spun out, or they've got something else now to hey, skinheads against racism. Shave your head to stand up to racism is their new thing. So those guys have kind of faded out, but now the people that have got their pants on, the truth people, are coming in and filling the void, and they actually will pay you. These other people were never going to give you any money. They were just going to complain. So I would say that it was all this total grand plan of world domination, but really I was just kind of, by my bootstraps a little bit, and knew basically the cycle that would happen. And if this tree had been cut down in the forest, it would have made a noise, but nobody would have really cared. But they made a big noise, and it's come back. And actually one of them the other day was posted, one of the original ones said, he should be thanking us. We made him famous, and I hope he didn't do this on purpose. And I was like, oh, one of them might be figuring this out a little bit. But, we had that first weekend. A lady, some Karen, had gotten through to the city council, the government here, and said, I was in there on the first Friday night, and she witnessed me assault someone and accost them and tear their mask off their face. So it's going around in the little chain of
Did you?
No. The little chain of text messages between the city council members and stuff. So they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And the mayor, to his credit, Chris Cannon Insurance across the street, says, look, I was there the whole night. Nothing happened. Nothing like that. Nothing happened. And they said, but the optics are bad. The optics are bad. What do we do about this? And he said, listen, Kevin has not denied entry to anybody, and he wouldn't. And he said, but he knows what he's doing, and it's working, so chill out. And I'm like, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for saying that. And the thing is they've given me some mandates. I don't have any bar stools because you can't have people at the bar. So we tell you, you're not allowed to be at the bar, and we're also not allowed to let people dance. It's not a dance club, but sometimes people start dancing. So I'm to go tell them,
I'm going to dance with
not
Bob
allowed.
Right after this.
Slow dance.
I hate that
Guys,
tyrannical
got
shit
from
of
a rose
not
on that
allowed.
So my thought,
land of the free, right?
I can tell you not to sit at the bar. I can tell you you're not allowed to dance, but they really haven't given me instructions on what to do after that. So if I say don't dance and they say no, make me. So my next move is now putting my hands on them. And so I have the power to Gomer Pyle citizen arrest anybody in this bar that's creating, violence against a patron, breaking property. I can do that. I can do it, but I can't go down the street looking for trouble. That becomes a vigilante. So if someone's not breaking a law and dancing is not a law, and then I initiate contact with them, I'm assaulting them. And even the police are saying, hey, I don't want any part of this because you're putting the ball in my court and I'm going to be the one to assault. So some of these rules are, not enforceable, and and I told them to say, well, I'll do what I can, but I can't change people's nature. I can't put my hands on. We have a patio, we have a little overflow, but basically the 25% concern, we basically are at 25% from the time we open till the time we close. We've been averaging, like last Friday, we averaged 57% tips on sales.
Damn.
It's crazy.
I have a quick question.
50% tips. So
what is your fire marshal regulated capacity here?
I don't want to
regularly
give away too much, but they came in a couple years ago because my local inspector, code enforcement guy, just wasn't having it, and they were putting in this next gen Agenda 21 zoning. So they had some minions come in from Austin, and they gave me an occupancy of the number of seats I have in here. So 60.
It's a random as shit.
Well, no, they counted seats, and I'm like, okay,
right,
so you're assuming that, and they really took my occupancy down from about 120 to 60. And I go, whoa, what are you doing? Oh, it doesn't matter. It'll help your insurance. It'll be better for you, like on insurance, that you have a lower number. And I go, well, I've got all these chairs out in the patio, and then people, congregate. So they didn't care. It'll never come back to bite me in the ass. Well, now it has come back to bite me in the ass. So I'm abiding by that. It looks like on the 12th, they're going to up it to 50% occupancy, and I imagine there'll be restrictions released on something else. But when we get to that point, I would just consider we're just back open for business, basically. So we'll see.
Well, 25%, I mean, if your occupancy is 60, 25% is 15 people.
15. With a deck.
We're pushing those limits right now.
But these are not. But with a deck, see, I have that deck out there, which is, there's no.
Right. Well, and how you're supposed to make a living on such a small margin with only 15 people allowed in here at a time is so insane.
And again, it only will spread in here and not at Walmart, not at HEB, not any of the places that...
I got the sniffles right now.
I'm telling you.
It's also arbitrary, so they don't give you any explanation. It's just like, 25%. Okay.
It's training.
Why 25%?
It's a magic number, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, it's
Why
like
6
the
feet?
6 feet shit.
Yeah.
It's like the 6 feet shit. Like why 6 feet? And when you ask normal people, okay, why 6 feet? They're just like, well, because, and that's as far as they get, because it falls apart as soon as they start thinking about it. And it's like, okay, do viruses only travel 6 feet, or viruses only get contagious when you have more than 25% capacity? Like nobody wants to think 2 steps further. And so, and what you have right now is, luckily you live in a small community. So you have the mayor that was here that night when you got, blamed for doing something wrong. So the benefits of being in a small community have helped, I think. But have you showed us a postcard earlier of your fan mail. Have you gotten a more overwhelming positive response than you have negative from, like, local people generally, like people coming in like, hey, thanks for doing this, and we're happy somebody else doing this?
Well, as far as local goes, I've spent the last 10 and a half years like a slow Chinese water torture getting rid of the people that I don't want in here, the people that...
we saw that live in action just now.
Right.
Again, that was Jennifer that did that. But so, he is a savage. Town's full of savages. But so if your good time starts to become someone else's bad time, then that's when I have an issue with you. And, I had to clean out drug dealers and a lot of that sort of stuff. So I've got a really cool crowd of people that come in here. And let's just say, Elgin is a strange little place. It's a city on the corner of 3 or 4 counties. We have a pretty big Hispanic population. We have a pretty big black population. And these people actually are descended from slaves. It's not that whole, got here 10 years ago from Barbados and you want your reparations. These people... Lydig is right outside of town where Mean Joe Green is from. was the free black town, 40 acres and a mule. So we have this diverse population, fairly even. This bar is a bar for parents bringing their kids in all the way like to 90 years of age, and it's not the hip hop bar for this age group. It's not the country bar for that age group. It's everything, and it's odd. It's odd that this even exists, really. So
I think the host of Death to Tyrants podcast has a question for you.
Well,
but you're here to carry him, though, right?
yeah,
That's why
I mean,
you're.
I've
We're
got all these
carrying each
helpers
other.
today. There's going to be people thinking, what are the chances that Buck would find this guy to come on the show, and he kind of agrees with a lot of the politics that we talk about on the show. Really quick, I haven't mentioned that I've known you for quite some time. Talk about your politics really quick. We met during the Ron Paul Revolution days, and so
The good one, the early one.
Yeah, exactly. Get into that real quick.
Okay, here, we'll do this. So my mom's from here. I have a cattle ranch from my mom's side of the family. Scottish, not Scotch-Irish, Scottish, losing into the Jacobin Revolution. Came over. My grandmother's side of the family, Prussian. You can see the import mark. It wasn't Germany, it was Prussia. So Scottish and German, basically. My dad's a British aerospace engineer, brought over to build better weapons for America and in the early tilt rotor projects and stuff. So I grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth. I grew up in Arlington. I went to school in San Marcos at Southwest. When I left there, in 93, I moved to Austin, the greatest place in the world to live, and at the time, and I lived there for, till 2009 when I moved out here because I was living over by Nutty Brown Cafe where I was SWAT teamed. It's $4.75 diesel to come check cows.
I like how you just blew past that.
We're not getting into
like
that.
you dropped this bomb.
We're not getting into that.
Where I was SWAT teamed, and so
we'll skip over that for now. So it was just I knew what Kurt Watson was doing to Austin with smart growth, and I didn't want any part of it. So I came out here to be a gentleman rancher and get away from how I got SWAT teams. So I'm watching Waco. I watched what happened. I said, they murdered all those people. At the time, I didn't know Randy Weaver. I said, well, you shouldn't have been a white supremacist up in the mountains. You were asking for it. And I was like, I'm too much of a hedonistic person. I can never live in a commune. These people were, they were obviously going to be whack-a-mole. So they kind of asked for it, even though they were murdered. And I said, it doesn't affect me. And then I'm living in Austin. I see Alex at gun shows. Talk to him. I see him running.
Trebek?
Yes. Alex Jones. Alex Emmerich Jones.
There we go.
So I'm seeing him doing this stuff, and I really, really remember clearly the July 25th, 2001 show where Alex went on this TV show and said, I'm calling it Operation Expose the Government Terrorist. Here's the numbers. White House, Congress, we say we know what you're going to do. You're going to use bin Laden, Tim Osman. You're going to hit Lower Manhattan, the World Trade Center complex. And I understood at that point, if you go and say something like that, if you miss by a minute, you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. So the late, great William Cooper had issued the same statement in June. He was SWAT teamed and killed on, I think, November 1st of 2001. So that left Alex, the only living person that predicted it. So I guess that first day, I think you could listen to the late, great Brave New Books used to play the audio where I called in that first day and I said, yeah, this is like Controlled Demolition Incorporated. What happened there, bud? And so my dad was at NASA Langley up at Hampton Roads. The 1st Tactical Fighter Wing is based there. They didn't scramble. My brother's was an airline pilot at the time. He's a cargo pilot now. He's sitting on the ramp at DFW, doesn't get to take off. I said, why aren't you shooting these things down? This is a mess. So like the next time Alex did a show, I just showed up and said, I do things pretty well, certain things, and I think I can help you. And at the time, I was working at Dallas nightclub, the biggest, the craziest, where I've seen many a firefighter kick the crap out of police in the parking lot after hours, just to shout out to firemen. Wednesday night, $1.69 drinks, 69-cent beers, and we do like $35,000. It was crazy. So I was basically the vault manager. I did all the banks and money. So the worst topless bar in Austin, the Crazy Lady over on 35. Now it's, I don't know, Conchita Bonita or something like that. So they're going to lose their liquor license. They're going to lose their sex-oriented business license. So they hired me to come in there and Harvey Keitel the hell of that place and clean it. And that I did. When I got rid and fired the people that were doing it, immediately law enforcement went ape shit. And we had a meeting with our corporate lawyers. I think there's like 4 different law enforcement there. 2 of them were actively trying to bust the guy that I got rid of, and the other 2 were protecting him because they had already busted him and he was their snitch. And I was like, I'm not playing your games, man. I'm here to clean this place. So I would go, and I started I started doing Alex's Access show with Mike Hansen, doing that. I started going and selling all Alex's DVDs and videos at gun shows, where the next guy over to me had a terrorist hunting license that he was selling. I got like Road to Tyranny playing on the screen, and oh my God, they were Pinko, Commie this, and just everything. And it was rough. Yeah. It was scary. And these guys already have guns, So I did all that. And then as Alex started to grow and expand and moved out of his little bedroom that he was broadcasting on Genesis and got his first, now we had a shipping office down in Manchac to ship, but when he did his first studio, then they hired me basically to take out the garbage, to do the shipping and to do the producing. And just so I was the producer, I did all the things that got us at that time a lot of notoriety. And it was like, to Alex's credit, the first person that gave Cindy Sheehan any air was Alex. And I went up there without him. We went up there and they were sleeping in a tent in the ditch. It was pretty damn pure. And then when we got about a week later, it was time to bring Alex up to do the interview. Now, by then, Ben and Jerry's had kicked in. Joan Baez played that night. She had handlers, and you're not on the list. I'm afraid you're not on the list. And you hear Cindy Sheehan yelling from the trailer now, they're my friends, leave them alone. I'm doing an interview. And this girl was just beside herself. So they were trying to control the narrative. And, look how they used her like they did until they gained control of the house. And then they dumped her like a ton of bricks. But so I'd seen these things. I thought I could lend something to Alex. I was his producer. We did great things. We were kind of an anomaly because we were basically, Dr. Paul, I asked him one time, I said, what am I? Because I'm sure no neoconservative. I don't know what to say because I don't want to say Republican. He goes, well, you're a paleoconservative. And I was like, okay, I'm a paleoconservative. So I'm a libertarian with a paleoconservative bent, or the other way around, whatever you want to say. So, and I have libertarian philosophies. I just don't do a lot of getting behind the party stuff because I find it to be an exercise in futility. But I do back it. So I did this stuff, and I'm aware. I read white papers. I know how the plan is, and I have to say that the last one I worked on was Endgame. And so Aaron Dykes was doing all the eugenics stuff. He was crying at night when he was reading this stuff. So we see these pandemics will be used for things, and I kind of knew it. And so I just, after a while, I wanted to get out of that, and I came out here, and some of this smart growth stuff was already happening here. And, we are here 10.5 years later. I was told my business was no longer viable. I can't make a living. I can't have an operations account. On the same day, they told me that my savings, my investment, my cattle were now devalued by quite a bit. And I was like, well, how's that? Well, a pandemic. I was like, well, we're not going to eat beef anymore? I don't understand the connection. So, I just said, we know what this is. This is the next phase of trying to get rid of Trump, trying to create chaos, either a race or an economic collapse riot. So, whatever the reason for it, we can see what it is. And I fought for years as a paleoconservative, kind of Jim of the left, because we were speaking out against Bush, and we were so unique, and we were the little pet monkey. And so, I've been to cool things with the old spokesperson for LBJ. I've been to Molly Ivins stuff. It's great. And I used to be able to argue and debate with these people in Austin. We're principled liberals. I could always beat them. But I was nice to them, and they were nice to me, and they were my friends. And all that stuff is just gone. And they've completely 180'd like multiple times on all their stances. And I'm just like, so you're the war party now? I'm not following them. I'm not tracking your train of thought here, but I don't know. So ask me something else, but I don't know if I answered the question or not.
No,
but my background was with Alex.
What was the question?
Oh, I know what I'll have to add to this. So I don't know how it started, but when Jimmy Vaughn would do something for Dr. Paul and didn't want to have his record label banned, he'd hire the Horton brothers. So that's where I probably already knew Buck a little bit before that. But so when we were rolling into the 2006 election, it's 2006. We're going to go for the 2008 presidential election. I'm seeing Giuliani. I'm seeing all these guys. And I remember I was in an airport once, and they were talking about Giuliani's family life, and that this third time is going to be the charm, and that this is looking really good. And I'm thinking, Dr. Paul's been married to the same lady for like 51 years at this point or something. He's a wonderful person. And he was running for Congress. He had a Democrat that had a lot of ethics or lobbyist violations on him. And he was playing I'm an avid hunter and a sportsman deal. And Ron Paul's a nut. So he was really hammering Dr. Paul's campaign for coming on Alex's show. So I said, well, I made a deal with the great Penny Langford Freeman. If you know Penny Freeman, she was a chief strategist for Dr. Paul in his Texas office, and Jeff Dice ran the DC office. So these were my compatriots and my working group. And so I made a deal with her. I said, okay, I'm not going to have Dr. Paul on Alex's show for like a month or maybe two, maybe a month and a half, I think was really what it was. I said, I'm not going to have him on because you're getting beat up about it, but you got to make me a deal. The second he gets reelected, then we're the first interview. You guys come right on. And that was the deal. Alex flipped out, yelled at me and all this stuff. I said, dude, I get it, but we're trying to get this guy reelected. We have to keep him elected. And so one of our many fights, but we got through it. And that first day he came on, and I like to make news by the guests that I could put together. So I had been talking to Richard Viguerie, who got Ronald Reagan elected with a direct mailer campaign, which is, again, the internet of its time. We were talking about, look at these neocons, look how horrible they are. I said, I want Dr. Paul. He said, I like him too, but he doesn't have an ego. He's not a sociopath, Yeah. So we'll have to push him.
What a downfall.
Yeah. There's no place for him. So basically, by talking to Richard Viguerie, Pat Buchanan, Bruce Fine, even Barr, even the old CIA Bob Barr. And it's basically those guys that put that Manifesto of Liberty together that he signed. So they started pressuring Dr. Paul to run. So that first day he came back after the election, I had sandwiched him in between Richard Viguerie and somebody else. And then that's the day it started rolling. And then with our friend Trevor Lyman, we were coming around. So V for Vendetta was a big thing, it had real strong message. So Trevor and I were doing a Ron Paul Revolution radio, I guess, on old We the People. Yeah. It got destroyed. But so Trevor Lyman's doing this money bomb idea. So we promoted, and it's the 5th of November one. And so then we come up, and it gets $6 million. And then so we come up on the Tea Party date. So during being with Alex during the Tea Party time, when the 9/11 Commission report came out, I kind of coordinated this worldwide refutation of that deal. So Bob Bowman retired, the first director of Strategic Space Initiative under Ford and Carter, Colonel Bob Bowman. He was up in Boston, had the tri-corner hat on. They had a giant mock-up of it with holes in it and a rope because they were going to throw it in Boston Harbor. You can throw things in Boston Harbor, but you just got to get them out right away or you get fined. So they did that in Boston. There's a bunch out in San Francisco that did like a Justice League thing, and they were all dressed up like Super Friends, and they threw it in the harbor there. And all around the world, people were doing it. All around the world, people were doing it. I think my favorite one, and we had like maybe a contest. People were sending video in. There was two guys in Oklahoma. Their high tops were unlaced. They had the knots in them. They had acid wash jeans on with holes in them, and they just show the 9/11 Commission report, and they throw it down in a little red clay mud puddle about that big, and it splashes up. And I thought that was my favorite one. So from the 9/11 Truth Movement, we had this Tea Party experience a little bit. And so when it came around to do the money bomb, and that's initially a lot of Ron Paul support with those people, So we did that money bomb, another $6 million, and people were like, what's going on? How are you doing this? And it's those kids on the internet. I don't know how they're doing it. Then my brother and I own an airplane that is used it was a Ford air controller in Korea and Vietnam. It's high horsepower, 2-seater. So what you do with them now is you tow sailplanes or you tow banners. So my brother built a lot of time towing banners. So I said, I got an idea. So Ted Anderson, I called Ted Anderson at Genesis. It was the parent company of Alex's early, I don't know anymore, but he was Alex was on Genesis Broadcasting.
And Jack Blood back then.
And Jack at the time too. So Ted had the money, and Ted wanted to do the Ron Paul Air Force. So we went around and we booked all these. You have to build the banners and stuff. And now they're big graphics. They're not just letters. So we had to book, and so we started towing banners everywhere. And then Trevor Lyman's in Florida. He's like, hey, we got these blimps for rent. You can just slap something on the side of a blimp. So he did that. And the next thing you know, it's just going crazy. And they're hiring staff over there. getting big salaries, and they're not producing anything, you know, and it's the outside the box people that are doing it. And when I say the people that started the Tea Party were probably like me, Trevor Lyman, Paul Davis in Austin with his big meetup. I mean, the meetup group was huge, you know, and Ernie Hancock out in Arizona used to be the producer for Goulier. The guy's name was Goulier, but Ernie came up with those Revolution shirt. That was his deal. And so kind of when we started pushing this, it was in Foundation and 9/11 Truth, then into Ron Paul's Money Bomb. And then all of a sudden we were domestic terrorists. We were the ones that were going to bomb buildings and all this stuff. And Glenn Beck was haranguing us all the time. And I used to feel like, man, am I producing Glenn Beck's show too? Because the next day he's doing my show, but he says that rat poison's good at the end instead of it's poison. Yeah, he did. So like 6 months into this Tea Party thing, all of a sudden Glenn Beck's running the Tea Party and their guest is Rick Perry and Palin. I'm like, what the hell is this? Isn't a Tea Party for them. And so that, you know, you can't have anything nice. You never can have anything nice or somebody's going to take it and ruin it. So so that's the Ron Paul thing. The day I got fired by Alex for always telling him to be nice and to quit being mean to people and making the talent cry, was the day that Penny Freeman left working for Dr. Paul, because her attitude was, and she ran Deborah Medina's campaign. Yeah. So she said, I'm in it to win it or I'm not doing it, you know, get me? And they were like, well, we're not going to win, but what we can do is educate and go around and educate people into the cause of liberty. So I get it. That's a good idea. But when the money started rolling in, when it got big and you had more than anybody else, they never really changed his staff didn't change their tact, you know? So in 08, we were great guns for him, you know? But then by 12, the early people were like, nah, I'm going to vote for you, but I'm not going to expend that much energy and watch you just take a dive at the 11th hour. And, you know, this last time it got down to him and Romney. That's what we want. They can't ignore you if there's only two guys, so you can eviscerate this guy. And I'm sure there was some deal that will be nice to Rand Paul in the next go around if you do. So all of a sudden they pull out. I'm like, okay, I'm really chapped. But, you know, I believe in Rand. I think he's the best senator for sure. His older brother, Ronnie, was in here last week. That was really cool. But, you know, I don't know. I think in a vacuum, if we were in a constitutional republic, I think the Ron Paul type people would be fantastic. And I hate to think that we really got to have a kind of a charismatic guy at this point because it's so far down the rabbit hole. And I don't want to become a monster to fight monsters, but, you know, as I fought the militarization of the police, they said this was what it was for. I'm like, go ahead then. You got the MRAP, go. But they'd rather go to the Amish, you know, milk farm and raid them with their MRAP or the bar out in West Texas. And, you know, I'm a protester, man. We've protested tons of times. And I've never burned anything down on my way out of there, you know. And so, you know, a thinly veiled disguise of a protest with and it's like this hands up, don't shoot thing. I had a 75th Ranger Regiment guy here in town. He's a beef guy, pretty famous guy. He's a lot of commercials and stuff. He's a good-looking guy, and there's a lot of ad people that used him. And so he was just right out of the Rangers, and these guys almost sideswiped him, brandished their El Diablo 45 at him. He snaps, man. He does the slide stop in front of him in the truck, out with the combat shotgun, on the ground, laid him out flat. And you know, he's that kind of guy. So I was having the discussion with him the other day, and I said, so, you know, when you were in and you like took anybody prisoner and their hands are up, he was like looking at me, he was all, It's like twisting his like, say for argument's sake, you took someone prisoner just for the argument, but they're Rangers. They don't take prisoners. They're only there because the SEAL team mission went bad or whatever. So they smoke everybody. So I said, so my understanding was that when you say I give up and I put my hands up, it's kind of an act of submission. The next thing you do is take a step back. You start to crouch. You start to position yourself like a dog, you know, going to flip on your back. So how do you say I surrender, I don't shoot me, and then you're coming at me, you know, at the same time you're charging me. So I always see what we used to call black bloc anarchist. You know, I'd love to be an anarchist. I think you and I would be good anarchists, but I just don't trust everyone else. But so we used to call them that, and you'd see them. Some guys just lays out some girl, you know. You hit a girl. You hit a girl. He was like, I didn't know she was a girl. She was assaulting me. She had a mask on, and you see that it's that common tactic of putting them up front to try to have a reason to be justified in whatever. So I don't understand. I thought this would be generational with the whole communism will solve all our problems, but it's broke down. It's like little mini subsets now. It doesn't take, and I'm like, where are you pointing? Who's your model that you're using now? They don't exist anymore. So, remember the left used to like Sweden. That was always the model socialist.
Not anymore.
No, they hate them now, don't they? They hate them. So,
yeah.
So, just kind of getting back to what's going on now, based on everything you just said with your experiences and worldviews and whatnot, I'd say that you're part of the woke crowd.
I used to be.
No,
we used to say awake. You're just not awake.
Right.
And
that's
then
what
it
I
became
mean.
Woke.
So let's say someone that doesn't necessarily share your worldview, I guess like an apolitical centrist Democrat type. And they say, why wouldn't you just wear a mask? Why wouldn't you just listen to our scientific institutions? What does it hurt to be cautious?
I guess.
How do you answer them on that?
I guess if I believed the argument they were putting forward, I might take that position. It's so. But I know it to be a fraud. I know it to be a fraud the whole time. So I mean, I can watch some Fox right now, like say Laura Ingraham, and I'm like, that is a great argument you're making, Laura. Given if this was true, you're making a good argument, but the whole thing is false. So I saw I put something about hydrochloroquine on my Facebook immediately. First guy to do it. I started getting hammered immediately because I saw, I think, a Stanford researcher on Laura Ingraham. He said, I'm not doing the study. I'm just compiling data. Okay, so him and a couple other professors. And what we're seeing in Korea, Taiwan, and China, almost, not exact, but almost the same protocol with this 70-year-old malaria drug. What I'm seeing is this will alleviate symptoms in a day or two. It won't be a trace of it in you in 4 or 5 days, and everybody's back to good, after a week. And she's letting him say that. And then he goes, but what the exciting part is, Laura, is that we're not seeing this in any of the malaria zones in the world. So what we're going to study is that we think you can take this 15-cent pill once a month as a preventative prophylactic and won't be a problem. Man, her earpiece must have been buzzing because she cut him off, wouldn't allow him to finish that point, because even if she's arguing the right side, she still needs the argument. And this guy just blew the game. I mean, this guy, the mob will shoot each other on their card table, but if you challenge the game, they will lock. So I saw that. I put it up. I started taking crap, and then 3 or 4 days later, Trump said it. Oh, shit, that was it. Drinking bleach, the whole thing. So turns out that one study they used was a fraud, and it does work. And I mean, I put the Italian Parliament up on Facebook now with these people saying, I have a genius friend in Canada named Silvio Montecaccioni. He's friends with Mel Gibson and Hutton Gibson. They're traditional Catholics. They don't believe in a pope since some time, whenever it became a Masonic pope. There's debates, but Silvio speaks Aramaic, Hebrew. He reads it all. They used to go to the Holy Land, and they could go in Kurdistan where the Muslims were protecting, what do you call them? Not missions, but, old churches, Christian churches, So guy's a genius, and churches. He told me, when John Paul II was sick and going to die, I go, yeah, it's going to be this black cardinal from Africa. He said, no, it's going to be Joseph Ratzinger from Germany. I've never heard of him. He said, well, he did Vatican II. John Paul got better, didn't die, but a couple years later, he did die. It was Ratzinger. I was like, holy shit, your stuff. So Silvio had sent me the data on these Italian studies like 3 weeks before anybody had mentioned it here. And they did the research, and they come up with a number of the 25,000 people that died up in the north in Milan, which is the industrial area, which you might get some Italian leather good, but it's made by Chinese that work in the factories there. They had done a heavy dose of flu vaccinations in the fall on this region of people, like 3 different ones. And so they came up with the data after it was all over. 51 people died of COVID, not 25,000. The 25,000 were 3 to 4 comorbidity factors, and these people were literally 90. I mean, these are some seriously old people. So if you watch Italian Parliament now, they're like, next time the prime minister gets a call from Bill Gates, I want it forwarded to the International Criminal Court. This guy's a genocidal maniac. He wants to save the world by genocide. he can't go to Africa because he sterilized everyone. He killed 500,000 kids in India. And I'm like, this is like someone standing on the floor of Congress saying all this stuff. It's amazing. And, people say, well, the Chinese did it. Well, the Chinese, maybe, but they're just part of this. So we were doing this research at University of North Carolina. They changed the laws. You couldn't do gain of function. Couldn't figure out how the rubber hit the road. So they moved it to China, built the facilities, and maybe they released it accidentally or whatever. But boy, the Western European countries that were in big trouble, politically, they're using it. Some more yellow vest on the streets. Or I imagine the Hong Kong protesters' numbers are going to be thinned down after this is all said. So, to me, it's just another New World Order move. It's like I said, they skipped the World War part and went right to pandemic, and it is manufactured. They had to be able to track it and trace it. They, if they could have made us all be covered in orange dye or something to see the spread, they would have. So they figured it out. The media did their job for sure. We surely did our job. I mean, we were compliant as possible. And when I was getting media requests, I said, I'll take you to my family cemeteries, out of here 10 miles away, and we can look at multiple graves of kids under a year of age that die because you're drinking cistern water. It's contaminated. Little kids didn't make it. If you can make it past your early childhood, you'd live forever. But I said, I'll show you a cluster of deaths in 1918 too. I can show you those things. But we never stopped our country. We never stopped our economy.
To touch on 1918, we didn't stop sending military around the world either. So
we can talk about that maybe originated from Kansas in the first place, and they sent it to the front lines, and everybody went their separate ways. And yeah, of course.
There was a lot of experiments done on inmates in the pandemic of 1918, and they did a bunch of horrific style experiments with inmates because as America goes, inmates have no rights. And what's funny is they did all of these experiments with inmates around that pandemic, and the transmission rate was 0. So they had, I think the one study that I read was 300 inmates that had people cough in their mouth, sneeze in their mouth, eyes open, just exposed to extremely sick people, and the transmission rate was 0. And people don't understand that we really don't know what causes vaccine or viruses to replicate. We don't really know the atmosphere of which people get sick. Like, it's still a theory. And so the crazy shit about this stuff in Wuhan is me being Building 7 Bob, I'm always gonna question everything. So when I heard about this stuff in Wuhan, I kind of knew what was going to happen. I knew at least that our government was going to use this to expand their power and shrink our freedom, because that's Crisis in Leviathan, is a fantastic book that just explains this kind of thing happening. Tyrants are always going to use some kind of panic, some kind of fear and emotional response to expand their power and shrink our freedom for the greater good. But if you track the global death rates pre-lockdown, the numbers were down. So there's no factual evidence that there's even a new sickness. So that's my problem with all of this, is there's no new numbers. There's no new demographic. It attacks old people, which old people are already susceptible to everything. And then all the other numbers that were killing the people that are already, in the compromised pool of people, those numbers haven't changed. So I have a theory that the governments around the world have highlighted pre-existing numbers to scare us. And when you start digging into facts, a lot of people give you pushback because they're like, oh, well, the CDC says this, and, people are dying, and yeah, people die. Yeah.
No one dies ever.
But especially now, we've said that, this is kind of off topic now, this whole virus thing, because the world's on fire and everybody's pissed off, because yet another black person was killed by cops. And so we've had this flash in the pan where what you were doing with your bar, the reason that we're here, you got super crazy attention, and then it just went away. Did you notice a change once this riot thing happened that you weren't getting the attention? I mean, I know you were supposed to be on some national news story, and they were like, "Oh, well, now we have this, so we're changing the story."
Yeah, I went the way of the murder hornet. I really did.
Right. It didn't work.
And
those things.
it was, I'd like to back up some stuff real quick, but really, yeah, I got bumped off of Nightline News by the rioting, and so the girl was nice, and she was a producer. She did what I used to do, and I said, I don't want you losing sleep or feeling bad when I go on your show and I get ambushed by a victim's family member, and she goes, oh no. I said, trust me, I know what I'm walking into, and I'll be fine. And she was nice. When they canceled, then I think she just forwarded all my info, because then CNN started hitting me up and they wanted me on Good Morning America. And I started thinking, Strahan and some Kelly Ripa knockoff. Didn't you have that weird Desmond kid, tranny dancing for guys in bars at 10? I'm like, nah, I'm not giving you any of my energy. I'm not going to go on that. I'm holding out for Tucker.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't care. And I'd say it like I said, that the lie is gone and it's done. And now the truth part's coming in. And that's why I wanted to do this stuff with you guys for sure. And we can all sit down and be calm and talk about it. And now you're opening up a whole can of worms. So letting all the prisoners out of prison so they wouldn't get the COVID.
I think they were making room. I think that was simply to continue chaos. So they let violent criminals out of prison, since you mentioned that. But yet they're arresting people that take their kids to the park.
Yeah.
So I think that was just to cause more madness. They're releasing violent criminals. They're also, it's well known that our jail systems are overcrowded, but they wanted to make room for all the dissenters, the ones that weren't doing what we were told, the ones that are pushing back.
It's test the police too, because you're going to get to see who will do it and who won't do it. You saw those guys in Jersey at the gym, and everybody was ready to lynch them and booing them, and they said, now listen, you're in violation of the governor's executive order. Let me talk. Having said that, you guys have a good day. And they walked away. Well, a few hours later, a different set of cops go back there, and they put the face scanner up, and they facial recognized everyone and tracked them to their houses and, all that stuff. So it just kind of feels a little bit like Cheney running drills in Iraq. This is a test.
Right.
Of course it is.
So we failed. Or we did well in their eyes.
I don't know. I think we have this brilliant opportunity in America right now where everybody's kind of confused and looking for answers. And us as freedom lovers have this moment in the sun right now where everybody is looking around, and we can kind of throw our hands up and go, hey, see what's going on right now? Our way solves this shit, and I really hope we don't. We need people like you that push against the narrative, that are business owners in a community, that kind of make people question what they've been told.
And you can go find the bar that requires you to wear a mask.
Sure, and that's always that's the beauty in freedom, right?
Yes.
Is the freedom of choice. Vote with your feet and vote with your dollars. If you don't like the policy that you have on your door, go to the asshole across the street. Of course, I think it's kind of silly to wear a mask in a bar where you have to drink. What kind of silly fucking shit is that?
My bank says I can't.
Oh, folks, he's back again.
Come on, man. Yes, get the fuck out of here, man.
David, get out of here.
This is
Then
the
come back
amazement
later and
that
let us
you
record
get
our shit,
on
man.
a live Death to Tyrants recording.
This is the best day of my
Another time.
life.
Go. Get tomorrow. Fuck off.
This episode drops Monday. You will be on it.
Hey, you're making your shot. Hey, whoa. Hey, wait,
If he touches you, whoa. Mate, don't let him put his hands on. Okay, now y'all can get him.
This is awesome.
Fuck off.
Chris, you might can edit some of this.
You gotta love small town
Chris,
drama,
keep it
right?
rolling.
This is fucking rad.
Do you want to ride in the state hospital? You want to make 71? Go away.
I like this guy.
Go. Sorry, you had to do that. Anywho.
All right. Well, see, this
That's
is
fact that you can't
when you
come
put-
in looking for a fucking fight and then get mad when somebody pushes you.
As you saw
Okay?
me
This is-
advocate, don't put your hands on, don't touch him. When he did touch someone in here, then I got to go Gomer Pyle on his ass. And
Well,
so
this would be a good time to segue.
start a mosh pit.
Well,
Okay.
I wasn't
now
gonna.
it's a party.
I wanted to ask about the pushback you've received. I didn't literally mean push back, but
Hey, I just took him out the door. Somebody else gave him that last show.
there you go.
He tucked and rolled though. He's all right.
When you took when
He's
you took
fine.
when you took this stance with the no masks and all of this stuff, what kind of pushback did you get online? I'm under the understanding that you might have got a lot of threats and phone calls.
I had a Facebook rating, star rating, of 4.8. 4.8, mind you. It's a good rating, I guess. I don't know what it means.
The
but-
point 2 was that guy.
Oh, it's down at about 2. It's about. He doesn't know about the tubes. He doesn't know about his AOL. His AOL disc ran out. So, but so yeah, it was because we were being cyberbullied, gang stalked. With him hacking onto the viewer recommended. We got down about 2.5. So everyone said, it had the worst steak of my life. I'll never eat there again. Well, we don't serve food. Your drinks were expensive. Oh, no, they're not. I wish they were. It was crowded. Nope. All that sort of stuff. So it was all, we were being doxxed and so I had a guy call me and say, look, I dealt with this shit. I've got the numbers to Facebook. I can show you the permanent delete and then you can go. And I said, nah, let it roll. And I've been taking things and putting it in a file and, constitutional lawyer Robert Barnes is watching. So I don't know, I'm going to be the next Covington kids, but he's watching. And so that was to be expected. And so they don't vote with their dollars. They don't live here. They live all over the country. So it just started getting more and more people going, hey, I saw what you did. Way to go. We getting love letters from California from registered nurses, people sending money in the mail. When I get the phone just wouldn't stop ringing off the wall, just constantly. And I get death threats and sentence fragments of obscenities. And I'm like, come on now, this is your shot. This is your big chance. String it together. Give me your A-list material. They can't. They can't even talk.
That touches on what I was saying earlier. Like, have you gotten a more overwhelming positive response than negative?
When it comes to people coming through the door and spending money, way more positive. But from threats around the country, from the left, keyboard commandos they were dominating me there for a little while, but it just doesn't.
Did you have some of those people wanting the cops to come shut you down?
Oh yeah. They were posting, they were cut and pasting. TABC's.
Are they still for the cops or no? I lose.
Call me.
I lose that perspective.
What time is it? About 5? We'll see.
Right.
Their hypocrisy is quite insane.
Yeah. I went.
They
and
want their
dug
cake and eat it too.
I went and dug that. It's not one of the more known Val Kilmer quotes from Tombstone, but it was the one about my hypocrisy only runs, so deep or something like that. But no, these people are literally mentally ill people. So they're mentally ill people.
Well, they are, and they tend to expose themselves as such when you engage in them or their tactics. When they send a fucking postcard across the country with a middle finger on it, that's not an emotionally stable person.
I wonder how many they bought them in gross. I'm sure they bought a whole bunch of them, got them cheaper. But I thought I appreciated that one. But
I respect the passion.
I do. So it's funny that, like I was telling you, I have a friend that recently moved here from Berkeley, and he's a wild man. I mean, I've seen an article of him in a tree to block a parking lot expansion. Now he's got 15 acres, a shotgun, a chainsaw. He's a different dude, and they think we brainwashed him. And he gets into it with them over there, and one guy was, they were going back and forth. He goes, man, you changed your position more than a libertarian think tank or something. And I was like, well played, sir. I was like, I'll tell you, I will give you that.
I'm going to have to actually use that. That's
I'll
pretty
go dig it up because it's some radical communist at Berkeley threw that one. I was like, I'll give you that one. But so I can't go in my bank with sunglasses and a hat on. Now I can wear a mask. So in here, I don't let people come in with hoodies. I mean, we get cased from time to time, and you can tell. I remember Carl, that was the head security guy for Ron Paul.
Yeah.
And I've been cool dude. So I've been up there and I go, this is probably not the worst duty you've ever done. No, I like it. I go, how do you do it? He goes, well, look out across that crowd. And I'm up there standing next to him, big crowd. He goes, look at everyone. He goes, it's a sea of the same people. It's there. Everyone's expression is different. Everyone's smiling. You see that the guy at the Hitler rally where everybody's Zeke Holland, that one guy's got his arms folded and pissed off. Now the meme is everyone's wearing masks.
Yeah.
That is what you see when you're looking into that crowd. If you're not in that same vibration, you stand out like a sore thumb kind of a thing. So
that's kind of what you do in the midst of all the insanity. You're the one without the mask, and there's all these masked warriors.
They're virtue signaling like crazy.
Yes. I got to, real quick, since this is a live recording, there's people here. There's a bunch of people here.
Under the 25%.
Under 25%. Let's take a question or two. If anyone has a question they want to ask any of us or Kevin, you can raise your hand if you've got.
Ask Buck and he'll repeat the question.
Yeah,
so
I've got to read it.
He definitely has the better
listening.
speaking voice.
But if any of you guys have a question for him or us.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Because you did blaze right past that. You got
a SWAT team story.
Well, okay.
We do have cops outside, so I think this is super relevant.
Priors, why don't you? So, so anyway, after I left working for Alex, he'd started We the People radio network, and I, when I was leaving Alex's employee, I said, you kind of put me out here and way out on a limb, and you're kind of sawing the limb off behind me. Now I did a lot of things, and now I'm naked. So I sent Randy Weaver up with this guy and a film crew up to Edna Lane Brown's in wherever it was, New Hampshire. So they had, he was the bug man, she was the dentist in town. Ends up after the Kelo New London decisions in 2005, the Supreme Court said you don't actually own your own property, that if a corporation wants to take it, they'll take it. So they upheld that. And plus I've had years and years of litigation with American Aluminum Corporation, Alcoa, and San Antonio, because I have ranches that are supposed to be in a lignite mine. And they're still in my water. So when they made that ruling, there's this couple up in New Hampshire, and they said, well, then I guess we don't want to pay our taxes anymore. I don't think we want to participate. And their actual next-door neighbor, property line neighbor, was Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. So they said, what we want to do is build a Patriot Resort. And they did the engineering studies, all the stuff, and put it to their alderman, said, we want to take his land because we're going to make a higher revenue-producing thing. Like, oh, gosh, no, that's not for Supreme Court justices. That's for you, peasants. And that's really when they said, we're not going to pay taxes anymore. And they basically were having default judgments against them. The community was supporting them. And then at one point, the U.S. Marshals in ghillie suits took some shots at a guy. And you should see this German Shepherd. Man, he hightailed it out of there. He ran so fast the other direction, away from these guys. But they took the kid in. He'd already walked past half a dozen of them on the side of the road. And when they turned to run away from the one, what's his name? Danny Riley. So he's still in prison, I think 37 years. So when he jumped up, they tackled him. They put him in a van. They tased him after they'd already cuffed him. They put him in a white van. They hauled him off and interrogated him and said, we want you to be a snitch. We want to do all this stuff. He said, I'm not going to do it. If you tell anybody, we're going to put you in prison. He comes right home, takes his shirt off, videotapes himself with the hook marks and the burns from the tasers. And then we had him on Alex's show talking about it. So I sent, when they did that, I thought, this looks familiar to me. So I called up Randy Weaver. He lived right across the Arizona line in Missouri, southern Missouri. And I said, Randy, you've seen what's happening? He goes, no, I don't have a TV. I said, well, it's all over the internet. He goes, well, I don't have internet either. And I said, that's sweet, man. That must be nice. But I said, here's what's happening. And if I send a film crew up with you, would you go up with him? He said, sure. So these guys picked him up at a truck stop in Missouri, and they drove all the way to New Hampshire, where there's no highways. There's no fast way to get up there. It's a long drive. And they had a press conference. And when they came outside, Ed in his tri-corner hat, and Randy Weaver comes out and holds up a picture of his dead wife and his dead son, said, whatever you're planning, whatever you're thinking, just stop right now. Don't do this. And so that was some big egg on the face of the U.S. Marshals and the FBI. They got very angry about it. DHS. The DHS helicopter hovered like 100 feet over the concert with the downwash going, and they'd leave to go refuel and come back, and because we were streaming it. And so a lot of people had gone up there 2 weeks after we sent Randy Weaver to do a benefit concert. And so a few of us were left in Austin, but a bunch of people went up there. So I was filling in for some shows, and a guy that Wes Perkins still works for Alex, Network Destroyer. Wes, he was a friend. I still call him Mr. Universe because our hackers are way better than their hackers kind of guy. So I'd done some radio shows the day. He goes, I'm going to bring you a better microphone. I'm going to be better stuff to do the show with. And so I met him down in Oak Hill at the HEB. He gave me the stuff. He said, you'd be able to plug and play this, but if it doesn't work, then I'm going to go reboot. He was a big server administrator. So I go boot some servers in downtown. Call me and I'll help you walk through it. So I called him. It wasn't working. I called him. He never got back with me. And I said, screw it. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to sleep. So I was supposed to do radio shows about 11. So at 9:15 in the morning, and the feds were driving by my house for 2 weeks. They would shut my internet down and they'd do all this stuff. So I lived on a cul-de-sac, and I'd go out, like, I'm going to go get a soda or something. And there'd go a Crown Vic would be creeping by, and I'd run up to them, wave at them, and they'd shoot down and run away from me. And I thought, it's a cul-de-sac. You got to come back by. So I'd wait at the street, and they'd creep, and they'd shoot past me. But everything had kind of calmed down. I'd had guns at the door, in the kitchen. I mean, anywhere I could reach, I had a gun. And so a few days before, I thought, well, it seems to calm down. I put everything back in the locked storage. Not everything, but most everything. And that morning at 9:15, my windows started breaking in, and they yelled, Sheriff's Department. I had 2 Ridgebacks. My first one was world champion in 99, but these guys were 11. They were old dogs. But boy, that morning, they were on. And they went shooting down the hall. And we had done a documentary called SWAT Team Killed My Dog. It was like a little 20-minute long deal one time. Made an Indian cry on TV. His little tear rolled right down his face like the garbage in India. So, and actually the girl was a waitress for me, was one of my waitresses. They went to the wrong house, blew her dog's brains out all over the kitchen, dragged the naked husband out of the shower, slammed him on the ground in front of the 3-year-old. The 3-year-old was holding her head, my dogs. Nice trauma, boys. So I just tackled my dogs in headlocks. And since they didn't say FBI or whatever, then I did not exchange gunfire with them that day. I thought, today's not the day. It's not 4 or 5 in the morning. So I tackled my dogs in headlocks. They had lasers were hitting them in the head when I came down the hall. So I was just, don't shoot my dogs. And he put the jackboot on the back of my neck, cocked the gun against my head, and said, don't move. And I was like, do not kill my dogs. And I lived in the county, but they brought the pound from the city in, and he put that long pole noose on their neck and pulled it tight, and they yelped. It just killed me. It just broke my heart. And they drugged them out. And then once they got me all situated, they drugged me through the broken glass on the patio, and they put me in the squad car. I think they put me in a constable's car. And he was talking shit to me, and I was like, you better be nice to me. Your boss is a friend of mine. I mean, I did campaign ads for the constable out there. He was a cool guy. And so they were, the feds were yucking it up, and they were just ransacking. They're like, we've got an arsenal in here. I was like, it's a collection. It's mostly Winchester 22s designed by John Browning. And, so they were going through it. My lease was up in a month anyway. So my landlord is out there trying to get my computers.
Sweet. This is going to be awesome.
Trying to take my computers and stash them. He can do what he wants. So trying to stash them in her van and getting my files and stuff out of there. They caught her, came down on her. She cried for like 4 or 5 days after this. So they stuck me in jail. They put my dogs in the pound. They towed my truck. They threw all the stuff. They evicted me that moment, even though I still had like a month left. Yeah, and it was rain. A front was coming. So every time I would stand up and ask, what do you do? They're like, shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. They wouldn't answer me. And so this is Friday the 13th. They're processing hundreds of people. And never me. And they're coming back in their suits. They're coming back in slippers. Every time I ask, they tell me, shut up and sit down. I would get on the phone that you have to have a code for, and I would go, SWAT team or something, and then would cut you off. So I'm calling him and just getting bits and fragments out. Finally, they gave me my code. I called him, and I said, I've been SWAT teamed. Tell Wes this happened, that happened. He's like, well, they already got Wes. I go, how'd they already get Wes? How did he already know? He go, he's already there. I go, how did he know to be here? You only got little sentence fragments. Like, oh, no, they got Wes at 3 a.m. They were waiting for him on his street when he came back from the servers. They arrested him on his street. Then at 9, they came after me. And so after 12 plus hours, they called my name. And it was just like in the Blues Brothers. There's a line in the downtown courthouse there. You got to sign for your stuff, but you can't touch the counter. So you're like in this weird stretch trying to, it's just one last humiliation, that you have to go through. And she said, okay, here's your stuff you had on you, and pay these two unpaid traffic tickets, or in 30 days you could get a warrant for you in 30 days. And so these were Class C. That's why I never went before a judge, because they weren't magistratable. So they sent out a multi-jurisdictional task force to get me on an inspection sticker kind of thing.
Wow.
So I was like,
We know legally if they
strange.
arrest you, you're supposed to be taken immediately in front of a magistrate, because of you can't imprison an innocent person, and it's innocent until proven guilty. What a lot of these cops don't understand is that they can't put you in jail legally.
No, I was in.
You're immediately supposed to go in front of a judge.
I was in the in-between netherworld, actually, for just long enough for them to rifle through all my stuff and to get what they wanted and all that sort of stuff. So, hey,
wait, is this guy willing to come talk to us? Will you come talk to us?
I've got to talk to this officer here right now. So if you guys can talk to somebody else real quick, that'd be fine.
I want to talk to him eventually before he leaves.
Don't know that he'll let you
Tim,
do that, but anyway.
Is your question for us or Kevin? Okay.
All right. Does anybody have a question for us so we can kind of we can get through this time period where somebody has been relegated by force, by threat of violence? Somebody has to move away from the microphone. Yeah. Have a seat, man. Let's go. Introduce yourself.
Name is Ace. Thanks for letting me come up here for a minute. I just wanted to pose a question to you guys. What got you into this? Like, what made you say, you know what, I need to start? I'm sorry, sir?
Keep going to start
doing what you're doing.
Oh, the podcasting stuff?
Getting it all out there, getting the information out there that people need to know.
Who wants to go first? I mean,
Bobby is to any of you.
Yeah.
Bobby shares our ideals, but doesn't have a freedom podcast. So his voice is more about obscure movies as far as podcasts go.
We can talk about that too.
Right.
Clockwork Orange, whatever.
Yeah.
We can ask him about with Bobby. We could maybe say what brought him to the freedom movement.
Gotcha.
Maybe not being a voice for liberty like Buck and I.
Okay.
So we could cater the question towards you without a podcast.
Your fucking roll there, Bob.
I've drank way too much.
In other words, was there something you saw happen or something that happened in your lives that said, you know what, this shit's got to change. I want to get on the air and preach what I believe to people.
Well, my personal experience was there's a guy by the name of Dave Smith that has a podcast called Part of the Problem. And I listened to him, and I've been an anarchist for a while, but I wasn't really, really active until he debated the head of the Libertarian Party, Nick Sarwark. And during that debate, he said, I'm a warrior for freedom, and I want to be a part of this movement. And I pretty much heard that call, and I couldn't just sit idly by and watch this country. I'm a single father, so I'm like, what in the hell kind of world did I bring kids into? And I want to see my children have a freer life than I grew up in. And back in the 80s when I was growing up, it seemed pretty free, and I would like them to be more free than that.
More like it was back in the 80s.
So because if I wasn't a father, I'd probably view all of this differently. I mean, I'd still be pissed off about it, but I probably would be more like, I'm getting the fuck out of here than I am now. So
you have a kid, it changes instantly,
everything.
The way you think.
Yeah, your perspective is completely different when it comes to being a parent. So, yeah, and I just want everybody to be free. Absolutely. We all have a set of rights that are trampled on by tyrants constantly. And I want everyone, not just Americans, not just certain groups, I want everyone to share what real freedom is.
Amen. Yes.
That's why I'm here.
That's awesome.
Buck, I think you should take this one now.
why I got into this, I was into the liberty part of it way before the podcasting part. So the liberty part started, late high school years or something like that, when I thought, I think I'm conservative. And then the war happened, and I thought, wait a second, that doesn't seem conservative. That's expanding government. I thought we want small government. And so I was like, wait a second. Republicans aren't conservative. And so I don't even like throwing around that term anymore, really, conservative, because it's kind of been bastardized. And I thought, well, I want like as little as government as possible here. I don't want to blow up the world. I don't want all of America on food stamps. And which party does that? Libertarians do that. So I've had my ups and downs with the party because the LP is fairly milquetoast and kind of lukewarm on a lot of stuff throughout the years. But my kind of principles have, I would say, strengthened over the years. And so I have an easier time now going, even that libertarian person's not for me. Maybe I'm not going to vote this time around. And maybe the answer is not who we vote for. Maybe the answer is spreading a message like Kevin was getting at with Ron Paul's campaign. It's not really about, hey, we should elect the best person ever, because that's very hard to do. It's hard to convince 100 million people to do what's right at the voting booth. But if you can live a good life and you can preach this kind of message, we're trying to infect, and I got this from my friend Tim, who's sitting out here. We're trying to infect, I call it, persuade 10%, because most people aren't going to care what we say. When you say, like Kevin, I don't want to wear a mask in this building, most people in this time, oh my God, that's crazy. If you say we shouldn't fight in Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan or Syria, there's a good chance that a lot of people go, well, then what are you going to do about terrorism? We shouldn't distribute food stamps and stuff like that. Government health care. Most people are going to say again, well, then what about this? And they get scared. They always threw the fear-mongering stuff at you. Well, you want everyone to die. I always say this analogy. If there was a government department of shoes, and that's what we were used to, and some crazy person goes, you know what? I bet you a lot of companies could make shoes and sell them to the public. A lot of people would go, you want people to be shoeless? And so that's what we're up against. And you're going to reach, you must be a Russian or a racist if you don't like shoes. So we're going to influence like 10% of the people. Ron Paul calls it the remnant. So that's just basically what we're doing with stuff like this, just trying to spread a message, basically, and slowly get it to where someone goes, wait a second. And I think we're in a good time now, because I'm going to really take advantage of this. I see so many left-wing people going, I don't like the cops all of a sudden. We should defund police forces. And I'm like, okay, well, then you can't have gun laws. All those gun laws you pushed, who's going to take everyone's guns away?
Or mask laws.
Or who's going to collect all these heavy taxes for government health care? You don't like the cops. Remember, don't forget this moment. And so I can't wait. I'm holding all these cards close to me. In the next year, I am going to pull them out one by one and nail these people, because I'm with you. If you want to privatize the police, no offense, that's fine.
No. Offense.
Yeah, offense. That's fine. I'm with you. We can talk about that, but realize these big left-wing programs require those guys coming to you and taking your stuff. That's how it starts. And so, anyway, sorry to get a bit on a rant there, but that's it's been getting to me lately when I see, because like we talked about, I have friends, acquaintances maybe, that were all for the lockdown, and they wanted drones flying over the city and making sure people didn't go to work, or if you go to work, how dare you do that? They want cops showing up and taking you away. And then all of a sudden, now they don't like cops. And it's like, well, who did you think was going to do what you wanted before? And when that unfortunate incident happened in Minneapolis, I thought, that's the picture of what you were asking for to begin with. Just pretend that guy was trying to work. Then they'd probably like it, So anyway, sorry about this long-winded rant.
No, it was excellent.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I would ask for your question, but our guest is busy at this moment. Anyway, we can probably ask him off the air. This is a good time to wrap up.
Yeah.
So, Moral Bob, thank you for co-hosting. Bobby Pearson,
yeah, man.
thank you for co-hosting. Kevin Smith, our guest here at the Liberty Tree Tavern in Elgin. And thank you guys for being here on the first ever live recording of Death to Tyrants. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, you guys, hope you enjoyed that. What a fun, crazy time we had out at Liberty Tree Tavern. Go visit them online and leave them some messages that you support. You support what they do. Good guys there, good fun. And thanks, Kevin, for having us out there. As for us, you kind of know the drill. Facebook.com/Death to Tyrants podcast. At Buck Rebel on Twitter, BuckRebel. Let's see, we got a Patreon page, of course. Patreon.com/Death to Tyrants. And until next week, you guys have a great one.
You get split in fucking half, till I call the hologram wrath. But I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Death to Tyrants podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.